So thank you all for
Recording in
joining us and calling to
progress.
order this special meeting of Shaftsbury Select Board. It's Monday, December 8th, 2025. We're convened here at Cole Hall. It is 6:30 p.m. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything that we're discussing this evening? Hearing none, we'll move forward to item number 3, which reads presentation of 60% report from the Dufresne Group.
Christina, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, awesome.
You can kind of take it away from here.
And if you need a moment,
Yeah.
that is also fine.
Sure. Just gonna get I just have a few slides.
Perfect.
I'm gonna keep my part kind of short because I think the more useful information tonight will be from discussion.
Okay.
So let's just get this going. There we go. I just sent a request to share.
Yeah, got it.
So we're going to share.
Oh, also in attendance, Brad Peacock, Mike Chianowski, Naomi Miller, Zoe Kroll, Tony Krulikowski is not here at this moment for the
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, we see you.
Great. There we go. So this project is a little bit different than what we normally see. Normally we're serving a fairly large, mostly residential or commercial area. And in this case, based on previous discussions with the wastewater committee, we came up with this kind of smaller service area that you can see on the screen here. That red boundary is the proposed service area. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean everybody in that area would be served, but that was just kind of the area we were focusing on. So that includes the town properties on Buck Hill Road and some of the smaller parcel sizes around the Route 7A Buck Hill Church intersection. So in our evaluation, about 90% of the properties within this study area don't have a permitted wastewater system. That just means that they were all installed prior to 2007. 2007 is when the state started permitting wastewater for most properties. And so many of these were likely installed, well, we know they were installed before 2007, but likely decades prior, just based on the history of South Shaftsbury. These systems are likely older dry wells or leach fields that don't meet current environmental protection rules. However, since they are grandfathered, they are not required to meet the current rules unless the system fails or if the property owner submits an application for an expansion. None of the study area is really located within a floodway, floodplain, river corridor, or well isolation zone because of your municipal water system. But there are still environmental concerns related to aging septic systems, including system failures that could result in raw sewage being washed into surface waters. But I think the more pressing issue here, at least my understanding of it, is the underutilized properties in this area that are potentially limited due to limited wastewater capacity, no space for expansion or replacement. And then the potential for putting housing on the town properties. This drawing here shows what we came up with for the largest system that can fit on the town property. So what you see there, that red rectangle that you can see, that is the size of a single field, a conventional trench dispersal field. That would be 6,490 gallons per day. The other area that you see, the same little lines that you see that are not outlined in red, is the replacement area. So the rules require that we have 100% replacement area for a system that is less than 6,500 gallons per day. There are some options to make this whole area a little bit smaller, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So the replacement area, so outside the red box, would not be constructed. That would just have to remain undisturbed, undeveloped, as the potential replacement area in case in the future the system fails. So ways to minimize all that space, because I know we want to maximize the potential use of the town properties. If we upsize that red box by another 50%, then we can get rid of the rest of it that's outside the red box. So it would reduce the overall area needed by about 25%. The reason this is the maximum we can get is because once we go to 6,500 gallons per day, so just 10 gallons more, we trigger a different permit program called the indirect discharge program. And under the indirect discharge program, we either have to do dual alternating fields, which would mean basically constructing everything shown here. So just by going 10 gallons more a day, we would double our cost to construct this. So that's why we stay right below that threshold. That threshold is very important. Or with a different kind of field called drip dispersal, we can go to 150%, which is what I was talking about before with eliminating the replacement area if we go to 150%. So staying within the regional program, that's 6,490. And it would take up about 75% of those two areas there that you'd see at a minimum. So if development plans for the town-owned parcels need to minimize the size of the wastewater field, then we would do the 150% of the area to eliminate the replacement area, which actually makes it easier to move into the indirect discharge program because we're already doing 150% then. So in short, so this is kind of where we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about all of this, what to do with the land here. So in short, there's flexibility in the square footage of that field. And that flexibility, the square footage of the field directly affects the capacity of the system. And so it's really important that we discuss the plans for the town properties and any priority properties nearby. So that brings us to who can be served by the system. So considering housing is a significant priority throughout the state, and we understand the town is considering a housing project here, the primary user would likely be the housing project. The number of housing units would determine what capacity is needed. And as I mentioned, that in turn determines the square footage of the disposal field. We can also do it backwards. So if you, instead of coming up with a number of housing units, came up with an area you needed and we knew how much area was left, we could go backwards and figure out what capacity we have that way. So it is kind of a balancing act where we need to work together to come up with a solution that maximizes the space available. So really what we need at this point to move the study forward and to get it finished up is an idea of the space needed for housing and the number of units anticipated so we can calculate the need. And then beyond that, if there is excess capacity available, then that capacity could be offered to nearby properties for that are underutilized or have little or no space for replacements or expansions. As I mentioned, the red area there is a service area, so we'd be looking at nearby properties kind of within that area. That's not set in stone, but that was our starting point from committee discussions previously. The northeast corner of that intersection is kind of where a lot of there's a bunch of small properties there, but the town we'll certainly need to have some input on what parcels and areas outside of the town properties would be prioritized if there is excess capacity. Moving forward, once we get all that information figured out to the best of our ability right now with the town, we would update the 60% report. So we did submit a 60% earlier this year, maybe in March or so. And it focused on the disposal field. We didn't have any collection system in there because we didn't know where it was going to be yet. So we would update the 60% report with any housing needs, adjust the disposal field size if needed, add in the collection system. And that will bring us to so that'll finalize the 60% that finishes out the 60%. And then we would go ahead and start adding in the items for the 90%, which is our total project cost estimates. We do life cycle cost estimates. We'll do a summary of funding opportunities and also some potential user fee scenarios. Following that, that's the draft report at that point. We'll have another public meeting and then we'll submit a final report. So we're not that far off from finishing at this point. Just need some input from the town. So like I said, I was going to keep it short. So I'd really like to hear what you all have to say and what you think about all of this. And I just put some items up there that are kind of priority for me to learn about.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that presentation. How would we like to proceed in terms of answering these questions? I mean, the housing plans, I'll just jump in with the minimum there, which is that there's no formal housing plan at this time. There are discussions about potential senior housing. Those are discussions that are still 18 months to 2 years out of any type of fruition. We have discussed it would take place on about 1 acre of land. It's the 1 acre of land that's right. Is this north? This is north, right? Yes. And the amount of units that would be included in that, I want to say that they said something like 40.
Dave, you have that information, right?
Well, he was talking
That
about,
was a question I had for you, Christina. We have 6,400 gallons. Can you translate that to number of bedrooms for us,
6 or something.
roughly? You know, is it
43 bedrooms.
43. So 46 was pretty close.
So it's 150 gallons per bedroom.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure if that was still the number.
Yep.
I think the senior housing was not really proposed for that many. However, it was,
Oh yeah, that's
that's
right.
the
That's the
total.
maximum that could be there.
and one of the potential goals in the senior housing development project would be also to, through grants and loans, rehabilitate and build up some of the houses, particularly along Cleveland Avenue, which I notice is not in this area of study in this study, but to then bring in workforce housing at the same time as freeing up that housing, a lot of which is inhabited by seniors at this particular point who are living in houses bigger than they need. But they're stuck in them because they're really not resellable as is. They don't have the money to rehabilitate them, but then also they would not be able to replace the septics in there for the reasons that Christine talked about. So this is a dual project, and some of those septic resources in this field would need to be ideally would need to be reserved for rehabilitated housing that would become available for sale as workforce housing. So making,
I mean, that is a possibility. Yeah, I think that is, but we don't know
right,
that that
talking
is what would
about
happen, is that
plants.
all these people would like move out of their houses into this. I don't think that that's necessarily what is going to happen
Right.
personally. So I'm just thinking really about the one most literal thing, which to me would be finding out from Cornerstone. This could give you a literal exact answer to one of your questions, is if reaching out to them tomorrow and saying, hi, if you were to build on this property, how many bedrooms do you think would be in, we kind of
Mhm.
discussed in brief, once again, all very early stages, a 2-building plan, and there would be probably 2 stories, so everything would stay kind of in keeping with the character of the area. And so they, based on the size of that lot, and
Mhm.
that discussion should be very easily able to give us a figure of how many
many
bedrooms
bedrooms,
would be
yeah.
in a development like that. So that is a number that we could give you that is a real number, as opposed to what you're talking about, which is a larger plan that does have I can't give her anything like actionable there necessarily.
Except that I think we should discuss whether we want to reserve some of that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Build a field potentially big enough to have leftover, not just for,
The
places.
proposed area.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Any reserve capacity that would be for properties kind of within that red boundary, just because there'd have to be infrastructure, you know, to get.
To move all the way down
If you just
Cleveland.
moved a house out of Cleveland Avenue
Yeah.
and said we want to connect this one, that's.
no, it'd have to be.
Yeah, it's too costly.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's right.
That makes sense.
That's right.
Christina, one other question for you, and you may or may not have the answer. If there were multiple homeowners utilizing this system, I'm just wondering about the legal mechanism or the role that the town would have to play or be expected to play in managing the septic, the pumps, any of that. Is that something you've been through before that could provide?
So if the town created a new community sewer system, let's say we have 6,490 gallons on the town-owned land there, and you want to connect the properties within that red boundary. You would have a collection system, and the town would own all of this. In order to get any funding, the town has to own it. So it would end up being a lot like your water system. So you would have an operator, it might be a contract operator, or it could be a staff member from the town. A lot of these smaller community wastewater systems are doing contract operators. But you would be responsible, the town would be responsible for billing, for operation and maintenance, permitting, pretty much all the same things you have to do on the water system. You'd also have an ordinance to govern all of it. You'd have to create an ordinance.
And basically a taxing district, right? Or would it would?
There would be a user fee.
User fee
and-
would-
The town can set that, and we're gonna give you some scenarios for that. Just based on however we end up, how this ends up coming together. We'll give you some scenarios of what that user fee could look like with different kinds of funding. So for example, in Londonderry, they are anticipating, what was it gonna be? I don't remember what it was. $75 a month for a house and $900 a year for a single family home or residential unit to be connected. So that's what Londonderry is anticipating for their user fee that covers all of their operation and maintenance, as well as starting to build a reserve fund for the wastewater system.
I just had a question, so the system that they're proposing, is it expandable, or is this like a closed loop system basically, where it's just gonna be the 6,490 gallons and can't at a further date kind of grow into a bigger system?
So this one cannot grow. We don't have enough space. I mean, if we did 150% of the, if we upsize to 150% for the field, we could go into the indirect discharge program. But it's not gonna get you a whole lot more capacity. And then, but the thing is, once you're up into the indirect discharge program, you can add pre-treatment, which then allows you to double your capacity. So if we if we did this and had an alternative that planned on just going into indirect discharge, we could get you some numbers that way of what it would look like at 150% of what we're showing here. And what that capacity would look like, and then what it would look like to add pretreatment to that. So South Londonderry system is actually doing that. They're doing a scalable system. It actually started out that we were only going to build the smaller system to begin with, but now they were able to get more money. So we're actually building the pretreatment as well. So their system started out with 6,480 gallons. And with the pretreatment, we're able to increase to 12,960. But beyond that, there really isn't a whole lot of flexibility. There's some flexibility beyond that, depending on how the system is being used, but not a lot. But if you're in the regional program, if you're below the 6,500, that's where you're at. There's no increase.
And would pre-treatment cost the homeowner more? If you're running that type of system?
So pretreatment would be system-wide. It would be at the disposal field, and the pretreatment for a 12,960 gallon a day system is about 500 to 600,000. That is just to add the pretreatment tanks.
Cool, good to know.
But we can do an alternative for you in the report that incorporates all of that.
Okay, I think we
Just
have
so
a
you
question
have it.
from Art in the back.
Yeah, we have roughly 43 bedrooms available, or that system will take. If the developer comes back and says, I'm only gonna put 20 bedrooms there, then the town has to build, the entire system. And, it'll only be half capacity until other houses come onto it, is that right?
Yeah, you'd have to build the whole field, if you wanted to max out. Or you can just build it for whatever is needed and don't connect anybody else.
If somebody else wants to connect after that, is it possible to add on to it?
Not as easily and certainly not cost effectively.
And the town has to do this in order to get the grants? It can't be a private person?
That is correct.
How come, did you use the 2000, it seems like you did a study in 2007, for sewer feasibility as well, that included a larger area of, South Shaftsbury? Did you guys take that into consideration, or why didn't, you try to piggyback off of that when you came up with these plans?
So the previous study, based on early discussions with the wastewater committee, and with the former administrator, the plan was too big and too costly, and so they were looking for something smaller. And the wastewater committee actually kind of went back and forth quite a bit on what the service area should look like. And whether or not, whether it should just serve the town properties or should it serve other properties as well. And that's that area that I showed. Oops. That
Just-
red line there is what they came up with.
But just to follow up on that, when I read that, the top line number was about 6 million back in 07. Is that the too costly number that we're talking?
Yeah, so what I don't recall off the top of my head what the number was back then, but whatever that was the discussion was that that was too costly, and there wasn't enough support from the community for it.
That was a big pipe system all the way to Bennington.
But I guess my question is that it was 6 million in 07, which this is probably gonna cost that in 2025, right? So like, I guess that's something just.
Well, that's part of the 90% plan, we'll find out.
Okay, yeah, but it's gonna be.
She'll tell us.
Okay,
If we had, if you look at the number of houses that are potentially need a septic system right in that area, we kind of eyeballed it, and I think it came out pretty true.
okay.
That if all these lots with non-conforming septics wanted to hook in, we would use that whole system without having to run pipes
all the way up.
all the way down to Cleveland Avenue or to Sycamore Lane. We've got that number of bedrooms right
Right there.
here
Okay,
with systems that are not compliant.
I guess my
Actually
que-
have about 8,800 gallons of need in this red area.
Okay.
Without adding on additional housing.
So basically, this system would satisfy that area, and that area is an area of explicit needs. Is that kind of,
Well, we could not document where there was a concentration of explicit need because there has not been a lot of evidence available from the state of failed systems that
Okay.
haven't been able to be
I see,
replaced.
okay, so it's kind of a, get people, we have the land to build on, so we're gonna use this. I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up here, because a lot of this, it really, too. So we're gonna build, we have, land that we own that we're gonna, by we, I mean the town, that you're gonna build on, so you're gonna set that up here and take care, and then take advantage of the people that are kind of surrounding and make it a more feasible system for that area, ostensibly.
Yeah, I mean, start with where we are
Mhm.
and work out
Okay.
as opposed to take this resource, the septic resource, and try to bring in disparate properties
Sure.
to that.
Because not everyone's gonna wanna tie in, basically.
Right.
It's also
Unless
the
you
cost.
force
So it's more efficient if we,
Got it, okay.
But it should also be noted that we sent letters to everybody that is within distance of this here, and nobody responded that they wanted to be part of it at this time.
right, yeah, every owner within that red area received a letter explaining what we were doing.
Does it include the country store?
Yes,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I would think that that's an important, like, the original thought was to unlock the economic potential of the Four Corners area by providing septic. Hearing nothing from any of those properties in that red area, this is kind of plan B, really.
Okay, I guess, so sorry, I made that, but is there a way to, you said you have to write ordinances, is there a way to compel through any kind of, so through zoning, if the people in this area who currently own, say they sell their house, is there a way to compel them to tie in upon sale or upon change of use or any of these, are there ways to incentivize people to join up, I guess?
I think the incentive is that if they join up and hook in, they will have a compliant system.
And then they can sell their home.
If you sell
They
a
can't sell
property,
their home without it.
No.
Got it.
well, no, they can sell their home,
But not for.
but they can not sell it with a compliant system.
Cause they can't get like a Title V or whatever that is.
I don't know.
Absolutely right.
A bank would not lend on a property with a failed septic system,
Got it, okay.
is a short answer
What?
to your question.
With a failed system, but they will loan on a non-conforming system that's working.
Yeah,
But-
and you can get, like, I had to do weird stuff with my septic, so I'm familiar.
Well, yeah, and it
Like
would
weird
happen,
permitting
it's
stuff.
inspection basically, right?
Yeah.
See it upon, okay.
Well, on that question, the towns, so some towns actually do require that if they run a sewer main by your house, you have to connect to it. And some towns don't. So I would say more towns don't require it than do. But it is up to the town on how you want to write your ordinance. The ordinance does have to be passed by, through public, notice period, so.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Of course.
So, Zoe, you said that you're gonna go to Cornerstone and ask them about their, because they're talking like two buildings, 2 stories, we're talking 43 bedrooms.
Oh, no, I misspoke. Just to like pause right there, because I think I actually was misleading. I was switching up the 43 bedrooms, which is the capacity of this the 6,490 gallon system. That, what I have no idea is how many bedrooms they would want to propose.
They had said 10 to 20, and that
10 to
they
20.
were
Okay,
interested
that's
in.
what I was curious.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke entirely.
Fine, I just was wanting to clear it. Because I was concerned if they wanted to do that many.
Yeah, it does not make any
and
sense now.
somebody else wanted to join, you weren't gonna have the capacity.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Very useful clarifying question.
Actually, so we talked about businesses, so what is the wastewater requirement for, say, a retail business or a restaurant business in that area that would be attaching to that? So he said it's 43 bedrooms, but, so say it was mixed use, what does that kind of look like?
Good question.
Restaurants are.
Yeah.
Let's see, 2 meals a day is 30 gallons per seat.
I'm kind of embarrassed, but I just realized that how small the area that we're talking about serving is there compared to the size of the problem potentially in the village, which is potentially all of the houses in there are someday going to have the same problem, and we're going through a lot of angst, it seems like to me, to solve it for a handful of properties. The country store, yeah, we'd all like the country store to go back, but I, for one, have given up on that dream after seeing it come and go for a long time. And I'm wondering and I guess this is really a question for the select board, what is the impetus for trying to take this on as a town septic instead of just letting Cornerstone build a septic for the property that they want to develop? Because what we're getting out of it is, just a handful of properties that can tie into this thing.
I do want to note also, it's another thing that's up in the air. The school across the street
Yeah, so much up there.
is utilizing, we did check in with the principal there. The school is currently utilizing, so this was last school year, 26% of its permitted capacity. And so there's an excess capacity there of over 5,700 gallons a day.
Yeah,
Now, that would be up to the supervisory union on how they want to handle that. And the reason I say it's up in the air is because everything related to education is all up in the air right now. So who knows if they would want to give up any of the capacity, but there is a lot of excess capacity at the school. We also looked at the Stanley site, the former Eagle Square property. But based on what we could find, it appears that the potential, so as of 2007, when the wastewater rule went into effect, all properties were grandfathered as of January 1st of 2007. So anybody who had a septic system before then, it was automatically grandfathered at whatever the use was on January 1st of 2007. So the use in 2007 of that property was probably significantly less than it historically was. And then in order to go back and use any of that excess capacity that might have been there, it would require significant evaluation, field investigations to actually dig up the system and see what it is and things like
at
that.
Stanley Tools Eagle Square is what you're.
Correct.
That's
So
also-
the school seems like a very
Informed.
interesting, viable option. That is a permitted system.
And I'll just Tim, part of your question, I guess, because this has been an evolving topic over time, is that yes, originally we thought we would, get people within that red boundary to tie in, and that would potentially unlock economic potential in our Four Corners area. But that doesn't seem like it's gone in that direction. So we are at a point where we decide, do we want to run a septic system for Cornerstone's development, or should Cornerstone own it themselves, even though it's under town property? And also, just the reason that the school is in the study area, it wasn't for us to be doing anything with it, but just to explore the potential there. And the school excess capacity could potentially serve lots, along here, theoretically, and the reason we're here is because we own this land and we're not running, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of pipe. So, there's just reasons why we are where we are, I guess, that it just, we kind of explored it, but we just can't pump sewage from Cleveland Avenue over here within a reasonable cost.
Maybe Ledgely Drive, but not Cleveland Avenue.
Yeah, it's
That'll
just
flow by crowd.
right. That's where that's where the big pipe system from way back
Yeah.
comes in. That's pumping the sewage all the way. I don't know how many miles that is over
It
here.
only seems cheap now, though.
Yeah, things have changed. Yeah.
In hindsight, just.
Yeah, well, if we tried to build this 20 years from now, we'll be looking at 25 million. So I know what you mean. I know what you're trying to say.
Everything's more expensive in the future.
So when this study was commissioned, were we thinking revitalize the Four Corners, or were we already talking to Cornerstone at that point?
I was thinking revitalize the Four Corners. I'm only one liaison to a board, but,
Well, at that
just to
point-
rewind just one slightly, for this is money that landed here from the state. So we had to explore something, you know, we got a free money from the state to run this study.
But also, the select board going back before I was on it anyway, you had already purchased these two properties and were already talking about developing housing
Yeah.
on them,
Mhm.
right? So, I mean, it was all happening
Yeah,
at
it's all
once.
happening. Well, this is kind of, I'm just trying to paint why we ended up where we are in this room today, you know, and how it kind of rolled out. You know,
Yeah.
with that $124,000 we did discuss locating, you know, feasible properties where you could, you know, put a septic system like this over there. The problem is you're asking private homeowners, would you like everyone's sewage under your lawn, you know, kind of. We didn't get that far with that discussion. And like now we just pointed out, this property, you know, came into our possession, so we have it. It's usable, it's flat, it's gravel. This whole area, this whole South Shaftsbury bench kind of is a gravelly area, so that's why we don't have a lot of failing septic systems, is because it does what it's supposed to, it takes it, yeah, so. Anyway, just a little background.
So
We
if-
can do we can take a look at the Cleveland Ave area. We didn't because the study was more, so the study initially, our scope was initially a little bit more broad, but then in the initial meetings, it was narrowed to this area here. So we can take a look over there and see if we find anything that could be a useful property.
Many of the lots on Cleveland are large enough though to have.
Yes. Yeah.
It's Meadow Lane has some small lots. And Sycamore Lane on one side of Sycamore has small lots, but now we're getting pretty far away from this system.
And I think from memory, Chris Panesi said that, and he's one of the other engineers who was involved with this, that the lots, the septics that had failed, I think he said he found like 8 to 10 of them, the homeowner had been able to, you know, fix that on their own.
Yeah,
I'm sure
the state issued variances.
okay. It wasn't, nobody was found that they couldn't
Kick
move
that out of
forward,
the
yeah,
house.
yes. So
Yeah,
that's-
the state won't take away somebody's use. So if a septic system fails, the state will allow a best fit scenario. Where the new system may not meet all of the current rules, but it meets as much as it can in order to maintain the use of the property.
Mhm.
So we're not really sitting on a time bomb here then, that
No.
in all likelihood,
No.
if we do nothing, people's systems will fail and they'll have to spend a lot of money. But they'll somehow come up with a system on their property, except for maybe the ones you're talking about that are too small to do that.
Well, they'll come up with something, but it'll be, you know, you can shoehorn something in that will probably work.
I would say at this point, you're not in a big rush to do anything. Like I said, there's nothing in the failed system query that's within that red area. And there were a few in town, but not within that red area. And with the ARPA money all being allocated already, that's where all the village wastewater projects are getting funded for construction. So there is no more ARPA money. And that was the 90% grant money that towns like Londonderry got. So I would suggest, you know, we can broaden this study out a little bit more, get you some more alternatives in there, so you have somewhere to kind of focus on. Kind of keep working on it, because if more money comes around, it goes faster to people who are ready for it. So that's kind of the plan. Be ready for it.
If the town undertakes this with grants, what percentage grants are they? You say the 90 is gone, but would it cost the town 20% of the cost, or Is it an 80-20 grant or what percent would it cost the town?
So utilizing the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, the best you're gonna get is 50%. And that's if you're a disadvantaged community. So your median household income has to be below the state's median household income. Outside of that, there isn't a whole lot. There was a grant program through ACCD for 20% grant. But that's all used up now. They come up with programs every now and then. There may be money for housing, but that would be, it has to be tied to housing for those. But really you'd be waiting for that, back in 2008, we had the ERA funding. That was a big infrastructure, grant program. And then we had the ARPA funding, another big infrastructure grant funding. So you're really trying to get ready for the next big infrastructure grant funding. And we don't know when that's gonna happen.
Bottom line, it's gonna be quite expensive for the town, because it's not a 90% grant or anything like that.
It seems to me that, that we're in a slight circular thing in terms of, but I think hopefully we can get past it. We tried to clarify with Cornerstone in preparation for this meeting, but they were unable to answer the question. Whether their funding sources for building on that lot up here require that the town provide septic, or whether they can get grants for septic. They had originally said they could get grants for septic. They would prefer not to have to, but they could do it. But they would need to know that something in much more detail than the 60% report gave us about the conditions on the ground of the septic suitability or availability or something. And we never got to clarify that with them. So I think, it sounds like if what we're doing is something so small and we don't want to pay for such a small boost to the town's potential economy, so much money on the taxpayer's dollar, but we do want increased housing here, then what we need to do is to figure out how to meet the reporting criteria that Cornerstone has in order to go for the grants themselves.
Well, don't we know that? I mean, she's given us the capacity, and we tell that Cornerstone the capacity is 6,500.
We told them that.
Yeah, they know the capacity. They asked for the 90% report for whatever reason. Just to be like, that's the simplest answer to this question is they asked for the next report. So we asked for that to exist so that we could give it to them.
That's right. So in a sense, I mean, maybe we need to ask
And
them to be
and
more
that makes
specific.
me find some of their, whether we can get funding or not.
Exactly. They want to know.
Yes,
They need to know like a little bit more. Yeah.
Same token, as a taxpayer who isn't in this area and has a fully functioning septic system, I don't want to be on the end of build it and they will come. I don't want to have my taxes impacted by something that I'm not utilizing.
That makes sense.
And I don't think that Cornerstone should be the only option. I mean, there are things like Habitat for Humanity who may wish to purchase, say, a lot, or say a lot that could be subdivided and put in a couple of septic systems, maybe on the free space that we have. And then you have viable families who will be paying full taxes on the appraised value of the homes and sending their kids to Shaftsbury, as opposed to multi-housing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I don't think that Cornerstone should be the only option.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We didn't commit to it.
Yeah.
But
And
Cornerstone is who's knocking on our door. and
Right.
Yeah, it's like
not
Shires,
door,
Cornerstone,
Shaftsbury,
and
but
they're like a
anything
three-party
economic,
organization.
it doesn't have-
And
Yeah.
Cornerstone is the old Shires, includes the old Shires, so they've already got a foothold in town and are
But
familiar.
they do rentals on.
They only do rental.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they also have it now as that their cornerstone, they have this other
Yep.
component that does
Out.
housing redevelopment, yeah.
Yeah, and they do all the stuff, as I'm sure many of you are aware, where they do those $40,000 grants to like sort of turn space into ADUs to get young people to move into renovated garages or former whatever that was not livable, or bring a space that was once rentable but needs to be brought back up to code to get it so that you can have somebody move in who's actually maybe from here and then can actually stay here and work here. But yes, well noted. Thank you. I think that what I'm taking away from all this is that 90% report would be cool. I personally do not think that we need to explore the Cleveland Avenue area. I'm sure there's a reason that the committee that spent all of this time on this ruled that out. Who knows a lot more about this than I do.
I've got another question for Christina. Do you have any sense for what the relative cost for one of these homeowners would be fixing a septic in place versus tapping into the system that we might build?
Well, if it's 900 a month in Londonderry and 900 a year, excuse me, oh my gosh. I imagine it would be something comparable.
So Londonderry's user fee would be about $900 a month,
A year.
a year. For
70.
after they're connected, that would be their annual user fee. The way that Londonderry is incentivizing connections right now is that if you connect as part of the construction of the new system, you get your connection for free.
Oh,
So the connections, they're doing a liquid only low pressure sewer collection system, which means that they have a special septic tank at each property that has a pump system in it. And it pumps into a small diameter collection system. So because of those tanks, the average price of a service connection is estimated, depending on the length of the service, probably in the $30,000 to $40,000 ballpark. That's just for the service connection.
You pounds eating that?
So the town is paying for that as part of for anybody who's already committed to connect, the town is paying for that. The property owner must give an easement for the service connection to the town at no cost. And they'll get their service line for free.
and they're doing this.
Anybody who comes later, so after we finish, after we go to bid, or after we're done permitting, which is coming up this month, in the next month. Anybody, let's say somebody comes in 2 years from now and wants to connect, they're gonna have to pay for their own service line.
And they're doing this using their ARPA funds, you said, correct?
Correct.
Good.
I just looked up the price of their project, the estimate on their project, which is for the disposal field size for 12,960, which includes their pretreatment.
Okay.
Fairly large collection system. They have about 1.5 miles between the South Village and their treatment field. So they have to run a line about 1.5 miles up there. So with that and 29 service connections, including all of their design and construction engineering and a 15% contingency, they're at 6.6 million.
Wow.
With a substantial amount of ledge that needs to be removed.
May I just say, I'm Cindy from Habitat, if you don't know what. So we are interested in being kind of part of the solution, if there
Cool.
is a way to be part of that. We work with with Cornerstone as well. So, Mary and I talk about projects all the time. So we are here to be a partner and want to be, so somehow.
That'd be great. Yeah.
That's great.
Do you have a card with you?
I do.
Okay.
I think one thing, it's a 0.86 of an acre. That lot is 0.86 of an acre. It's really small, so I don't know how 10 to 20 units fits on there, or what our current zoning would even allow. So maybe if we could answer some of those questions through zoning. I mean, we're talking about habitat and putting single family homes, like how many can you really squeeze on to 0.86 of an acre?
So we're actually looking at starting to do a couple like duplexes. So you can also, you know, with the new ruling, you can put duplexes where you can put a single family. We do usually do quarter acre lots.
Quarter
So
acre.
like that could be three, the 0.8 could be 3 lots. And, or maybe, you know, and then having 3 duplexes, but again, it's depending on where and how you have to have the sewer.
Okay, right.
That, you have to have that.
And I bring that up because we own that 0.86, but we also own the lot next to it, and we have the ability to, you know, adjust lot.
Boundary line
lines
adjust,
if we want
yeah.
to get the builder what they would need to know. I think we need to be a little, you know, this is a once in a probably 3 generation opportunity in downtown Shaftsbury to build housing, which is what the state wants. So whatever we can do to maximize the amount of bedrooms on this area back here, I think is to our advantage, or at least to, you know, to the state's advantage eventually, and hopefully to the tax rolls advantage, and hopefully to the affordability of a system. And we don't want to lock ourselves out of any future potential capacity, but at the same time, I think it's gonna be a heavy lift to get Shaftsbury to build this for Cornerstone or Habitat or anyone else.
Yeah, and then to operate it. I mean, as soon as we talked about the water system, I was like, oh, man.
Yeah. So I envision kind of saying, hey, Cornerstone or Habitat or anyone else who wants to.
And we can
be a
help in some
developer,
ways, yeah.
Here's
but
here's a study that we did on septic. You know, and
That's what I
certainly,
imagine
yeah,
too, yeah.
We still have the school, we'd still have the school backup.
That for.
One of the things that I always thought too with planning, right now, we allow single family and duplexes. But if you look almost everywhere else, they're doing with private, you know, they're attached housing, what we used to call townhouses. And, but that requires a zoning change, and that's where the planning commission would come in. It's basically 0 side yards.
Yeah.
And on that land, you could then, and I'm not suggesting a, you know, 10 or 15 units stretched out, but maybe blocks of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Similar to really what Cornerstone was talking about, 2 buildings with multiple apartments, but why not do those as some townhomes that could be single family, privately owned?
Yeah, and even at the risk of some spot zoning, if that's what it takes to make this happen in this particular spot. And one thing people do sometimes is they go up. I know that's not in keeping with the character here, but a 3rd floor, you know, then you get into elevators and such, but
I know
going
that
up is a possibility.
Habitat up in Burlington, north end of state, they're actually doing quadplexes where they're actually selling. So still it's home ownership. I mean, again, home ownership gives you some stability in your community versus rentals. And, you know, so they're doing, again, but that's zoning. You'd have to.
That's why the planning commission's here.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. The zoning administrator and I have looked at this a little bit, and currently, multi-family housing is really only in Village Center, which is really only along 7A. Off of that, it's Village Residential, which is less friendly to multifamily housing. But you're talking about adjacent properties, in the case of this here, so it would not, and we checked with BCRC, it would not be considered spot zoning to extend Village Center to one more lot away from 7A in order to accommodate multifamily housing.
Okay.
That's great, thank you, Tim.
And that same zoning might allow some of the infill within that red zone. If people wanted to do that, which would then be an incentive for them to hook in, because they would need to hook into a conforming septic.
Oh, if they were to expand develop their property in a new way, right, yeah, because they wouldn't
they-
have capacity on their existing
Right now, they're
system.
fine.
Yeah,
As
but if
soon
they
as
were to
start
expand.
adding bedrooms, they need a compliant system. So
Would incentivize, yes. Much to consider.
So we,
I don't know.
a few slides back, there was a list of things that we really needed to discuss in terms of the 90% report, right, Christine?
I think it was just a list of things that it will provide.
So just, I wanted to kind of focus this discussion on what the plans were for the town property, and then prioritization of other properties. And I think we have covered those things. As I've been listening here, I've been thinking about how we can do the report to kind of keep it a little bit more general. And you know, the system doesn't necessarily need to go up in that corner of the site. And so we can provide the square footage necessary. There are some restrictions on where it can and can't go, but you know, if there's a boundary line adjustment, that helps a little bit in moving it. We could give that. We could give a per foot price for collection system installations, a per service price for connecting somebody, whether it's a gravity system or a liquid only sewer system. So we can kind of include a lot of flexibility in the report, so it's more useful to the town and for whoever might be developing this in the future.
That would be great because that really allows the town to consider, but also to any potential stakeholders in the future. And that level of like sort of granular detail, I think would be very useful.
Okay.
Anticipating questions I'll get asked on Wednesday from the other members of the planning commission. I'm not hearing a lot of cheerleading for the town to build a $6 million septic system that nobody wants to hook up.
I'll just say, that's an impossibly heavy, that's just not us, that's a non-starter. You know, it's no one's gonna do.
There's not enough bang for your buck on this. I think
Yeah,
that, I mean, that's the long, at the end of the day, it's like you're not getting enough of a broad enough region to get enough people to tie in where it makes financial sense.
Building a $1 million garage, how many years ago, was a 10-year battle. This is just beyond
Yeah.
fantasy, so we shouldn't.
I'd really love for our existing water system to work in a normal and functional way. With meters that were, you know, I just that's what's on my mind in terms of water things right now.
That's right. And then there's the PFAS issue.
Which is gonna be
has
forever,
raising as well. The expanded PFAS issue in providing water, safe drinking water and that.
If a private cornerstone or somebody like that was to develop it, can we put in a caveat that the entire area has to be developed so that we are not losing out on some capacity that they aren't gonna use?
Maybe.
Impossible to.
That or you reserve it. I mean,
Right.
if you're gonna put housing around that and just use town-owned land, I doubt very much whether it's gonna cost $6 million.
Yep.
Is that accurate, Christina?
Oh yeah, that's correct. The 6.6 in Londonderry, like I said, that's a almost 13,000 gallon system plus a mile and a half of transmission line from.
Right.
Yes, I
No,
was
I mean,
here.
it's a doable, this is a doable site for somebody that wants to put in, you know, up to, you know, potentially 30 bedrooms, which probably is more than you could put there. That's 10 3-bedroom houses.
Yeah.
So, and your cost is gonna be actually less than if you would do 10 3-bedroom detached houses, each with their own septic,
Yeah.
because you're not gonna have the duplication of septic tanks and everything else. So it's gonna be a more efficient system.
Uses less space.
And then if there is an area that'll be reserved as open space in the future,
Someone else could build there.
yeah,
Okay, I just hate to give up that, the fact
The
that we've got some
capacity.
decent capacity here.
yeah.
That makes sense.
So what is it, Tim, that you're anticipating trying to sort out at the planning commission? That
Well,
just as that question.
what our essential job is on the planning commission is to help you execute your plans. And right now I'm trying to figure out what your plan is.
Well, our plan is to bring housing in.
So
Right.
create
My-
zoning.
Yeah, my question would be, under current zoning stand, right, the current zoning regime, what is the maximum potential number of bedrooms we could get on that 0.86 acres?
We've been thinking of it as one because we've been thinking of a boundary line
Oh, that's
adjustment.
perfect. About 1 acre then?
Just to throw that in there.
And just to get that answer, because maybe that answer is, I don't know what the answer is, there's setbacks, all the, you gotta figure that out, determine if it's, something where, if that answer turns out to be, 4 bedrooms or something like that, over 2 units, or 6 bedrooms over 2, it's just not much. We need to figure out if this is worth moving forward on, if it gives us enough bang for our buck, I guess is what you were saying, is this something that's worth putting town energy into? I think we need to be handing off, we get the 90% of it, and then saying to whoever the developer may be, here's the results of our study. Here's the results of our zoning, what
Yeah.
can you do,
And
We
this,
can't, we talked about 6 million, but $600,000, I think, is a non-starter politically. $60,000 is probably a non-starter.
Yeah, and so, I mean, just to put it, to reframe it in the positive light,
Mhm.
we might say we want the planning commission to tell us how many we can.
Yes,
but
it's possible.
we have talked
To
about this.
figure out how to do as many as possible so that we have the
Right.
outside.
Can we develop
Right.
a zoning setback and bulk regulations that would allow, just pick a number out of the air, 24 bedrooms?
Yeah.
In 2, 3, and 4 bedroom housing.
And Tim, for your, I mean, I know you've been privy to a couple of these conversations, but we've been talking to the BCRC and Callie, but specifically Samantha Page, about this a lot for like a year. And I think we actually have come up with that number in conjunction, not hard and fast, but we have like had discussions around this that because of talking about entering the tier 1B exemption and sort of talking about like as with the redistrictor, like the overarching map that's about to come down. And so I would touch base with her is what I'm saying, because what I don't remember, she will remember. So I would reach out to Callie Fishburne and Samantha Page about that, because I know we have had like fairly detailed conversations with them about if that were to be 1 acre, what they would see as feasible. I know that this is like a zoning, like a town thing, but there also is a state component that they were like, oh, because of what's going on right now and what we're doing with the regional plan and what's going on with Act 250 and all of these different elements, that there are some sort of different answers now that are more favorable when it comes to allowing for more high density in these particular zones, which this does fall in. Now that we've opted into tier 1B of Act 181. There we go. So I would ask them about it. It's not top of mind for me, but like, yes, that, and also what Mr. Mance, right, Mr. Mance was saying, is definitely also a thing to consider, is like what the other things that the planning commission, which sounds like you're already talking with Carlin Mickle about, could do if it were to be townhomes, if it were to be like, what are the things that other towns are doing that we're not doing, that are keeping us out of, keeping up sort of with this idea of more housing, which the state desperately needs, and also doing it in a way that makes sense, I think, is what I would go with home with.
Well, I can tell you that right now, that particular lot is not zoned for multi-family housing. It could very easily be zoned for multi-family housing just within our existing bylaws. I want to say that when we looked at the numbers quickly, Carlin and I, that we had the number of 20 units in our head, and that could probably be done there.
Okay.
So, something like that is going to be the answer, I think, that we come up with. But it sounds like the planning commission doesn't need to worry about sewer,
No,
because
I don't think so.
I don't think the town is gonna build sewer, and what we're gonna do, it sounds like, is what Mike was suggesting, is we finish this report in a way that Cornerstone can use.
Or someone
to
else.
evaluate the property, and then, in the meantime, we'll lay the carpet out for Cornerstone, saying,
Or someone else.
Or someone, well, I think at that point, we will make a really general invitation
Yeah,
to people who want to put up, in the broadest sense of the word, affordable housing. And
Basically,
see
the-
what comes forward.
And we
the
can
septic
say-
fee for someone to build,
Right.
housing on a lot, basically.
and we can say as a town that we, as the town of Shaftesbury, took money that was given to us by the state, and to the best of our efforts with very many qualified people from town, we put together a plan so that now we have more information than we had before about how we could possibly do this thing that we didn't know how to do at all before.
And assuming nothing happens, that plan will sit there and 10
And be
years from now,
useful.
a new infrastructure package comes down the pipe, we'll be ready to pounce.
And we can do a couple little
Okay.
updates and, you know,
But being ready, like when you're in line for those things, you know, being ready is a lot better than being not ready.
as Christina mentioned, yeah, absolutely.
Also, having that report that opens the door for developers to look at it.
Mhm.
and consider something
Absolutely.
You guys, for the town.
So we just have to tell her to get the next part of the report done. That was.
Yes, okay, so does anyone have any further comments? No, okay.
Does Christina have any questions? You take
She's like, I have
all
nothing
this
but
in.
questions.
I think it's, I think I have a direction in where we're gonna go with the report, so.
Great.
This is, like I said, this one's a little different than some of the others we've done, where there's, you know, a very defined system that comes out of it, so. This one will be a little bit different, we'll build some flexibility into it and just give you guys a lot of information.
Thank you.
In regard to, you were just mentioning, you know, possibly, you know, trying to reach out for interest in, you know, from housing developers. This is outside of my job here, but Manchester did that. I don't know if you know about that. Manchester did an RFP for housing development on one of the town-owned properties, so you might want to connect with them to get some information about how that went for them. I know they did select somebody to proceed with some work.
Thank you for that.
Thank you
Dorset
for all
did
of
a
it.
better job of doing it, though, I'll tell you. I'm gonna just say that out loud, and I'm sorry.
You're
But-
allowed
But
your
I've
opinion.
been
it's not-
involved in both Dorset and Manchester's, and Dorset, if you're looking at it from a town perspective, look at what Dorset did as well as what Manchester did.
Okay,
Just information.
You can do that.
That's why it's probably the parallel to.
Cool.
It's a little bit smaller.
Yeah,
okay.
it's just that they did a lot of studies, and I mean, they presented it to
vote for
developers,
how
like,
you continue to-
here's what we really want you to consider.
I have one last
We
question.
can ask.
Do you have a timeline on the 90% report?
Not this month.
No, not Christmas Eve?
Feels off.
Yes, I'll be taking some time off towards the end of the month. But I would say, how does February sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so
Sounds
let's
cool.
plan on that.
Christina, just so that you know that you have a majority of the sewer committee here tonight, so if you need any more from our committee, feel free to reach out.
Sure, thank you.
All right. So I guess at this time, I would like to just say thank you, Christina. Please go forth. Do we need to vote upon her continuing? I don't think so.
I don't think so, do we?
All right, I don't believe that we do need to do that. Okay, but I'm just always checking. I'm still new. Okay, so action items, Christina is going to work on that. We are going to look forward to it in February. She'll reach out to the sewer feasibility committee if she has any questions because they know what is going on.
I think we didn't have anything for other, but Paula, didn't you have another that you needed to address?
Was it the payroll warrant that you wanted you guys to sign?
Oh, yes, we're going to do one warrant this
Oh,
evening.
Yes.
We're going to, yes,
Can't put on this show.
the select board, yeah.
Show?
The select board meetings
Sorry.
are off cycle now with the payroll
Like,
cycle,
off
so we're
cycle.
always like 1 week
And I'm
off
like,
of
I
payroll.
have them here.
I'd like to call for a motion to consider
Thank you,
check warrant
Christina.
report PR 12, which is a payroll warrant in the amount of $20,322.83.
So moved.
All in favor of approving this?
Aye.
Oh, also aye. Yes, you may.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, thank you all
Thank you,
so much for
Christina.
joining us this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
Yes. And then, and the meeting, I guess.
Yes. Okay, now that we've signed our report, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Naomi, all in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. Great. Okay, good.
Yeah.